San Francisco, the city by the bay. It's known for the beauty of the Golden Gate Bridge, the hippie movement, and the summer of love. The 70s ushered in diverse cultures to the city, and San Francisco had risen to the forefront of fashion and the birth of West Coast jazz. But along with the boom of diversity, art, fashion, business, and much more, there has always been a seedier side of San Francisco. The sort of wickedness that can seep into every dark corner of every major city. Drugs, prostitution, and crime would be the norm. San Francisco became a hotbed for serial killers and gruesome murders. It seemed as though the Golden Gate was the perfect backdrop for the depraved criminal to display their grotesque fantasies. San Francisco State University, up to that point, had been isolated from this. It had never experienced a murder on campus. Perhaps this lulled everyone into a false sense of security. But this complacency would be shocked back to reality on September 11, 1977. Jenny Low Chang went to the campus library to study. A familiar face, someone she trusted, took her to the fourth floor faculty reading room. And then all hell broke loose. The body of 19-year-old Los Angeles native Jenny Low Chang was found stabbed and badly beaten in the faculty reading room of the J. Paul Leonard Campus Library. This room was closed and tightly secured, and only those with a key or a key card could gain entry. So how did Jenny's body end up in that part of the building? And who would want to kill her? And how have they evaded capture for 47 years? Let's break this case down into 4 parts: victim profile, reconstruction of Jenny's final hours, crime scene evidence, established suspects. Jenny was an honors student and was on the dean's list for the last 3 semesters before her murder. Her heavy course load, which included science, genetics, biochemistry, physiology, and English, did not allow for many extracurricular activities. Jenny's small circle of friends said she was quiet and wasn't the party type. She didn't smoke or drink and focused on her studies. There were no campus romances. Jenny had a boyfriend in Long Beach. To stay in shape, the 5 feet, 100-pound teen jogged every afternoon and recently enrolled in a self-defense class. Ann Thorson, Jenny's roommate at Merced Hall Dormitory, said Jenny left at around 6 p.m. Sunday, September 11th, to study in the basement of the Leonard Library. The walk from the dorm would take only 12 minutes, and it wouldn't get dark until 7:24 p.m. It was also noted that Jenny was carrying books and wasn't dressed as though she intended to stay out late. Campus police stated that they were unable to find anyone that had seen Jenny after she left for the library. The 6th-floor library was locked and secured by 5 p.m. on Sundays. However, there was a garden room in the basement, which students used for study purposes, that remained open until 11 p.m. Although it was suggested that Jenny was headed to the basement of the library, detectives believe Jenny may have been lured to the 4th floor soon after her arrival. Authorities theorized that someone who didn't pose a threat to Jenny may have offered to escort her to a locked faculty reading room where she could use a typewriter. This theory was reached after a rough copy of an essay was found in Jenny's books. Detectives quickly learned how the killer, with Jenny in tow, could have made their way undetected to the fourth floor after the building had been secured for the day. It appeared that the sonic ceiling alarms in the Leonard Library had been deactivated since the last semester before the murder, leaving the library with virtually no security. Administration sources claimed that contractors had been called in over a 3-month period to fix the malfunctioning system. Public Affairs Officer Don Scoble said even if the system had been working properly, it still would have been possible to use the elevator to the fourth floor without activating the first floor alarm. Scoble confirmed that the fire codes required that the elevators remain accessible to exits in all areas of the building. He also disclosed that a set of library keys had been missing since August 10th. Ann Thorson became concerned when Jenny didn't return to the dorm and reported her missing at 6 a.m. on September 12th. A few hours later, at 8:40 a.m., police would be notified when Professor Robert Suksek discovered Jenny's body in the faculty reading room. The entrance to the room was only accessible by key or insertion of a special identification card into the slot of the locked door. Though some reports state that the door wasn't functioning, Professor Suksek was certain that the door was locked when he used his card before entering. Suksek, a professor of the university's psychology department, said at first he thought he was looking at some macabre joke being played by a student. Jenny's nude body lay on the floor. She had been beaten so severely that she was almost unrecognizable. The horrified professor stated that pieces of broken furniture were scattered about the room. It was obvious that Jenny had fought desperately for her life. The perpetrator may have underestimated her strength, or perhaps Jenny had remembered some of the techniques demonstrated in her self-defense class. This young woman's courageous battle was made clear by the beating and stabbing she had sustained. There was a glistening substance found on Jenny's body, leading inspectors Jack Cleary and Dave Toski to believe that she had been sexually assaulted, and reports would later confirm their assumption. She was stabbed over 30 times in her chest and abdomen. The weapon was a small bladed knife measuring no more than a half-inch. Jenny had massive head wounds. The perpetrator had used a library smoking stand and a waste receptacle to bludgeon her with. Jenny's trousers were tied around her throat, and her sandals were found 15 feet away from her body. Inspector Toski stated that the rest of her clothing and schoolwork were neatly piled in a chair not far from where she lay on the floor. This one detail may have suggested that Jenny was forced to take her clothes off before she was sexually assaulted, stabbed, and beaten to death. Grief-stricken Ann Thorson was brought in to make a positive ID. Two men became persons of interest shortly after Jenny's murder. The first was a young man in his early 20s. He was threatening women in restrooms with a knife in the campus neighborhood. In what is believed to be a related incident on November 10th, almost 1 month after Jenny was murdered, a woman was robbed of $35 and forced to remove her clothing in a fourth-floor restroom of the Biological Science Building. The woman managed to escape before being assaulted. No further information on this suspect was found during our research. The second man was Floyd McCoy, age 23. He was a guard at the library and a student at San Francisco State. McCoy was on duty the evening Jenny was murdered. His duties that night would have been a final check on the first floor before stationing himself in the library basement until it closed at 11 p.m. McCoy claimed that he wasn't feeling well that evening and went home at around 9 p.m. The 23-year-old never alerted anyone that he was leaving, which subsequently led to him being fired 8 days after Jenny's murder. But this infraction was just the tip of the iceberg concerning McCoy's behavior. Let's back up to July 26, 1977, just 6 weeks before Jenny's murder. A woman phoned police to say that she had been attacked by a man with a gun. She said the man pulled a gun and tried to force her inside a building. Upon further inquiry, police learned that the woman was a prostitute and advertised for dates in the Berkeley Barb, an underground newspaper known to carry explicit personal sex advertisements in their classified ads section. The woman stated that a man had arranged to meet her on the 4th floor of the Leonard Library, but never showed up. A short time later, the man phoned once again to set up a second date. This time they would meet at 23 Collingwood Street, where the attack would eventually take place. The woman later identified McCoy as her assailant. McCoy's apartment was at 27 Collingwood. McCoy was said to have professed his innocence and even broke into tears. In October of 1977, McCoy was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, assault with intent to commit rape, and false imprisonment. He was found guilty of misdemeanor assault and false imprisonment and served 1 year in the county jail. Floyd McCoy's behavior would continue to play a pivotal role in why he was so closely scrutinized in Jenny's murder. In 1982, McCoy was back in the headlines in Reno, Nevada. He was working as a fire inspector for the Reno Fire Department when on the 14th of July he was indicted for the sexual assault of a 55-year-old woman. The woman claimed that on May 4, 1982, McCoy came to her home under the guise of performing a fire inspection. She stated that the now 25-year-old McCoy pushed his way into her bathroom and told her, "What I'm going to do, you're going to like it." She testified that she tried to push McCoy into the bathtub, but she wasn't able to escape. In fear for her life, she complied when he forced her to perform a sexual act on him. Of course, McCoy denied the allegations and simply explained that he and the woman had been in a relationship that he was trying to break off, and she made up these accusations against him to get back at him. After 2 trials, with each one ending in a hung jury, McCoy walked free. The woman filed a civil suit against McCoy, the city of Reno, and the Reno Fire Department, and was awarded a settlement of $35,000. During these legal battles, it was learned that McCoy made several false statements on his application when applying for the position at the fire department. He alleged to have a college degree that he had not earned, and lied about his prior felony conviction by producing falsified documents which showed that his prior crimes were only misdemeanors. Even more damning was the statement given by Reno Fire Chief Harry Van Meter. The chief said, "I'm not sure why McCoy was performing the inspection alone. It's strictly against policy to enter a home without other department employees." Unfortunately, this is where the trail of suspects in Jenny's murder goes cold. McCoy and the other young man that assaulted women in the restrooms were never linked to the killing, nor were any of the 1,200 people who possessed coded cards to the library and the other 400 people with master keys. Of course, over time, there has been the occasional whispers that this was the act of the Zodiac Killer or Rodney Alcala. While it's not out of the realm of possibility, neither of them would have had the key to the 4th floor faculty room of the library. Jenny's parents filed a $1 million claim against the university, citing wrongful acts that endangered and ultimately killed their daughter. The lawsuit was settled out of court 5 years later for an undisclosed amount. The university planted a tree in memory of Jenny and set up a scholarship fund for those students coming to San Francisco State to fulfill their dreams. But what about Jenny? Where is Jenny's justice after 47 years? Who was the monster behind the face that Jenny trusted? Who took her to the 4th floor of the J. Paul Leonard Library to sexually assault, stab and beat her to death. Was it a student, a faculty member, a custodian, a guard, a serial killer? If you have any information about the murder of Jenny Low Chang, please call the San Francisco Police Department at 415-553-0123 or the Campus Police Anonymous Crime Tip Line at 415-338-3030. Are you obsessed with true crime content? Subscribe now and join our growing community as we analyze and discuss the details of some truly baffling cold cases. Browse our growing library of cold case investigations and immerse yourself in the mysteries that keep us up at night. Subscribe and join the EOJ community today. All it takes is a click.